You are listening to the Fresh Take Network.
Joshua Adamley Arbuthnot and Richard Strobant. We have a fantastic interview this evening. Canadian Hall of Famer, football legend, Mark Stephen. Absolute honor to have you here on Fresh Take.
Well, thank you very much. Look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, you're a native Calgarian, born and raised here, correct? Went to school, was it in
Wisewood?
Wisewood. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then went to the USC and took a Canadian history degree.
Yep.
That's kind of cool. And then you and I sort of kind of almost worked together. You were at CFCN upstairs and I was downstairs at CJ.
Yes.
But you started in 78 and I think you'd left before I had started there. So we've never really worked together.
Yeah.
We've worked
in
with
the
a
same
lot
spot,
of the same
not at
people.
the same time though.
Yeah. So you started at CTV, but before that, where were you and how did you get into this entire career of sports broadcasting after the degree?
Well, while attending the University of Calgary, I did a lot of stuff there as well. For the radio station, did on-air sports reports. I wanted something to do. I was also doing a lot of stuff with the athletic program. And on the station, I did play-by-play of the Dinos basketball and hockey for a while, several years there. Then I heard that CFCN, now CTV, but I always call it CFCN.
Me too.
That's right. Call it CTV Calgary, too corporate for me. Had a part-time opening for weekends. And, they were looking for somebody local that wanted to jump in. So I did know Ken Dewins from before, just being around. And we talked and I was the guy, I guess. So I worked there first as my part-time school job, and then blossomed into full-time.
Yeah, I do remember you on doing the weekend sportscasts. Actually, I worked with Ken as well. Like I said, we worked with a lot of the same people. I even went to junior high school with his son Mike.
Right.
In fact.
Right. Okay.
But, so you were at CFCN for a little while, and then made a little bit of a hop over to try radio over in Regina, correct?
Yeah, basically it was just the case that there's a lot of really experienced and very capable people at CFCN. And, if I was going to do anything different on my own, I had to go. I didn't want to, but I could probably still be doing weekends there if I wanted to, because nobody was unhappy, except it just was a circumstance. I wanted to do something different. So,
and nobody was moving with guys, like Russ Peak. We'll talk a little bit about Russ and a little bit about Ken a little later in the podcast, and get some stories about some of the legends like we did last podcast when we talked with Peter Marr. So go ahead, Josh, your question.
Yeah. So what drove you to be in sports broadcasting? What was the first igniter that drove you to get into the industry?
Well, I guess just always being around and listening to and interested in. It was always on in our house growing up. And, I used to wait for the start of the football season, when it would come on. It always was exciting. And I guess the first time I put two things together, I was actually at a Stampeders game. And a bunch of people, collective age was about 20 of everybody in the junior quarterback club. We all started chanting, "Go Stamps, go, go Stamps, go." And I got home and said to my mom, I said, "Well, did you hear us? Did you hear us?" I have no clue if she did or not, but she said yes. I think, and upon with reflection, what I really meant is, did Eric Bishop say anything about us? So I figured if Eric Bishop could say something about us, my mom claimed he did, so that was good enough for me. That was exciting that he would recognize it and broadcast it out there. And believe it or not, they used to do high school football on the air too a long time ago. So all of those things just combined, it just seemed like a exciting career. And I knew Calgary and do sports, and here we are.
And play-by-play is something you've wanted to do for at a very young age, especially being connected with the Stamps in that junior quarterback club and going there. So the opportunity to be able to do play-by-play then when the Calgary Cannons came to town, and that's when you came back as well. And I believe you also worked with the Cannons in kind of like the PR department as well.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did both roles and helped out with the broadcasts. That was very exciting. It's an elite level of baseball. I miss it desperately. I wish they were still here, but I think a look outside might tell you why they're not. But the reality is, it was exciting. It was an elite level of baseball, and I enjoy doing it. And I've met, the people that came through from the different cities, many of whom are in the major leagues now. And I talk to them. And I guess I always grew up watching baseball. The Saturday game of the week, which used to be the only game of the week. It was, I used to watch that and enjoy that. And I used to play around with the radio too, listening to different games. I heard, basketball games from the Bay Area and Denver and things like that, different hockey games. And I even picked up Denver Broncos football. That wasn't easy to do, but I made it a priority to play around with the radio there a bit.
So are you a Broncos fan? I guess we got to ask.
No, not really. I don't hate them, but my team's the New York Giants.
There you go.
Big blue.
I was interested in the Cannons thing. So you obviously got to do the Cannons play-by-play. So at that time, obviously they're the Seattle affiliate, later the White Sox. Were you there during the A-Rod years?
No, I was gone just before that. So I missed him. But I did see him play. The thing that stood out about him for me is he wasn't the best player on the field, but he was by far the youngest. So you didn't notice his age. I mean, if this guy was playing AAA at 19, without sweating, I mean, he's obviously elite. So that's when I knew this guy was something special. As I say, he wasn't the best, but he fit right in. You couldn't tell the difference. If you just looked at the program and had only the names, you wouldn't have known that he was a elite #1 prospect, because he just fit right in. Just, the prior year, he was at Westminster Christian High School in Miami. I'd say the level of competition was a little higher.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of those Cannons rosters. I mean, there's so many great names. Edgar Martinez stopped by, Jay Buhner stopped by. Like you said, it was a really fun time, and I do miss it. But like you said, you do look outside and see what there was. But when we had it here, it was a really great time to have them. Can you kind of remember what it was of the transition and how it kind of went about when you knew the Albuquerque move that was happening for the Cannons?
Well, I guess you could kind of see the writing on the wall. Let's also remember at the time, there was a huge Canadian-American dollar gap too. Yeah. And so any expenses that Cannons had, and 95% of them were in the US, were different things, were in, earn Canadian, spend American is not a formula for success, especially at that time. What had happened with the Canada? What changed? The first couple or 3 years, people just showed up regardless. They were so excited. Yeah. But after a while, the season runs from, say, roughly April the 10th to Labor Day. And, it's a Tuesday night in April. It's 9 degrees. It's not awful, but you want to go sit there for 3 hours. It might rain, the wind will come up a little later, the sun goes down, so people just quit coming before Victoria Day. And yet that was a third of the season. People just quit coming, so you could start to see it. And then so you had 72 openings, really 24 could just toss out. The remainder, I mean, you had to have big, great nights every one of those nights to make a go of it. They couldn't and didn't, understandably. So you could just start to see it diminish, is what I'm a long-winded answer. Yeah. Was I disappointed? Of course, but I think you could see it coming. And then here's one. Stop me. A stadium issue.
I love that stadium though. I have so many childhood memories there, but you
way
kind of
below.
See it coming.
It wouldn't even qualify as a rookie stadium, the facilities now for the rookie level, so that was another issue, and that's a recurring theme. I've spent too much time talking stadiums, but that's a recurring theme. The stadium, that was another issue. The dollar, the diminishing attendance, and the stadium required basically a new one, but it would have required tens of millions of dollars to bring it to standard.
Right.
I remember when they did move too, and you heard the name Albuquerque Isotopes, and recently they just had that Simpsons episode a year or so beforehand. I really thought it was a joke, and I wonder if you guys kind of thought when you heard the name was going to be Albuquerque Isotopes, that you guys maybe like you knew the move was coming, but then it's like, really?
Well, my theory was, would I have personally named it that? No. But their team, their name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's theirs now. It's not, the thing is, it just happened earlier this year. The can has been gone longer than when they were here at the time they were here. So time is marching on.
Well, the nostalgia side is definitely hitting too, right? You see the Sea of the Dead with the hats and the shirts have been booming lately.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's no question. And I started up a couple of a Twitter account, Remember the Calgary Cannons, and a Facebook page too, which I periodically post to, and I get periodically get just pictures randomly saying, hey, look, here's the magazine I had when I was there. Hey, here's a set of tickets I didn't use for a couple games. So you got to keep it alive because, and I guess what spurred me to remember it all was Edgar Martinez going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I started to look around and say, let's be kind of neat to do something on him. And there was nothing, not a central place. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And I said, somebody should do something about that. Well, I guess I'm a somebody, so I did something about it. So.
I definitely remembered Edgar. I remember Jay Buhner, but I mean, obviously when people think of Cannons, the names that come to their mind is Alex Rodriguez, because he, what he came on to do. I mean, he just bought a basketball team the other day and was engaged to J-Lo. But Edgar going to those games when I was a kid was definitely someone that stood up. And then obviously having that fantastic Mariners team with him and Griffey and Randy Johnson later on, it's hard to forget him as part of that and also part of Cannon's legacy.
Well, Hall of Fame. So that was that's interesting. And the first guy with substantial Cannon ties to go to the Hall of Fame. So.
And speaking of Hall of Fame, the first step to go to the Hall of Fame for you was starting it over at QR and then becoming in 1996 the full-time voice of doing play-by-play for the Stamps. So how did that all start for you heading over to QR? Because they didn't have the rights beforehand. It was another station in town that had them. And then QR got the rights, correct?
And that was coincidentally the day that announcement was made was the day I started. So because they were adding this, it's not, they aren't tied together, but it's just that the
timing, Mark.
they added the they wanted somebody else in the sports department because if they were going to cover the Stampeders and be the voice, they had to do more than just have a one-man band, which is what they were. So that extra person was me, and right from the start, I got to work on all the different broadcasts. I was one of the hosts at the start, so that was good. I did some statistical work too. So. Nice. But that was it. And then the play-by-play job came open after 1995, and I told them I was ready, and I guess I was.
25 years. 25 years now. Well, do we count last year? I don't know.
No, I'm dying. I guess you kind of have to, but I'm just dying. I'm convinced there will be a season this year, but I can't tell you, when it's going to start. It's pretty frustrating, and people have moved on, both staff. And players have moved on, so it's a trying time for everyone in the league.
It's been a trying time for everybody everywhere for sure.
That's true.
And CFL, CFL obviously with it's a league that's generated by gate. You're not going to get the TV revenue that you get from the NFL on it, and if they can't come, it's going to be very difficult to sustain it. But I bet you miss the hell out of doing a game.
Oh yeah, I mean it's torture driving by McMahon, which I do on a regular basis. I mean I haven't even set foot in the stadium in over a year. Wow. Not the stadium part. I went and bought a bunch of Christmas gifts in the store, but to go into the actual bowl, I've been there for a year. You can't. They won't let you in. So,
wow.
What do you do?
I guess not great. I kind of want to stay on the modern side of it, since we're on this right now, because it's one of my questions. What do you think about the XFL? I don't know if it's merger or partnership with the CFL and how that's going to affect things going forward.
If it's just talks to streamline things, like maybe compare best practices with officials, order equipment, just some synergies like that, I don't have a problem. But if there's people that want to crater the CFL to join this twice failed, what is the XFL today? Yeah, it's a bunch of helmets and dirty uniforms. That's it. But if there's those in the CFL that are dying to link up with this outfit, I mean, I know The Rock has numbers to a big hedge fund. Good for him, phone number and everything, and he's rich. But I just don't see this as a merger. If there are those that want to be involved in the XFL that are in Canada, go there. Go hang out with The Rock, get his autograph, whatever you want. Anything that combines the on-field product, I am adamantly opposed to. And is there a way to do it? Maybe. I don't see it today. So I'm kind of walking a little tentatively around it because, maybe there are some ways they can work together, but like, what is the CFL? It has its problems. I don't want to pretend otherwise.
It's a legacy.
That's my point. What is the CFL?
Yeah.
What does the XFL have to offer the CFL?
The name of The Rock. That's it.
The Rock has a couple of email accounts here. It's supposedly this company in New York, Redbird Capital. So I say, if it impacts in any way the legacy or the on-field, I am adamantly opposed. So I guess that's where it would stand. Off-field, combining, and I liked some of the stuff in the XFL. I loved the way they got right into the replay booth. That was cool. Yeah. That was really, and I don't mind their kickoff rule. I would like to see it maybe tried in preseason, where because a lot of kickoffs, the guys get hurt on, and I thought it was a good rule. Why not give it a shot? So I'm not pretending there was nothing of any value, but if it's the on-field or the player and the legacy of the CFL that's touched by this, goodbye. Not interested in the slightest.
We saw in the early, late 90s, a little bit early 2000s, the merger of making the United States part of the CFL and how much of a failure it was. I don't think we need to go down that way. There's such a legacy with the CFL. And I think just before, obviously, the pandemic hit, I thought the CFL was in a better place, and it's been in a while with popularity. There's so much passion there. We were getting close to having an Atlantic team, which was going to have a fantastic fan base. So I think, obviously, they can figure things out after this pandemic. I think it's in a great place to be right now. And I agree with you. I don't think you really want to water down the XFL because what does it have to offer other than the name of Dwayne Johnson?
Well, that's right. And let's, okay, I get it. He's got a huge following. He's a megastar. I don't want to dispute that. But he sends out a couple tweets on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Okay, great. Now what?
Yeah.
Does that mean suddenly the CFL is lucrative? And no, it doesn't. So I have a problem with it.
Well, and
we'll
CFL's
see.
Doing okay. Like there's games on ESPN. I'm lucky enough since I have some ties in the States to have ESPN up here by great ways. And they do okay ratings on ESPN, the CFL. There's Americans that really do dig it because they're struggling for football before college season starts and before the NFL starts. And they find their own CFL ties to watch these games.
See, you've hit it right there. This is the mindset in the U.S. Football is roughly Labor Day or the 1st of September through the 1st of February with the Super Bowl, whatever day that is.
Yeah.
Friday night is high school. Saturday is college. Sunday is pro. That's the mindset. Anything outside of that confine doesn't work, never has, and probably never will.
And I think after this pandemic is over, you're going to see a lot of Canadians going back to the CFL, and going back because it's an opportunity again to go and be around people safely, have this one big environment. Concerts are going to boom. Hockey games are going to see a lot more attendance, and we've been stuck in the house long enough that I think when we finally can safely go and see a football game, I see admission at football games going way up. In all centers.
Yeah. I think in a lot of businesses, I think there's huge pent up demand for vacations, recreation, other shopping as well. Yeah. I think you're dead on there.
Yeah, I think so too.
I want to take it back a little bit to the broadcast booth because I've had the ability to call games for the Colts up at that top of the McMahon there. And I've always been so impressed with how anyone can call football. It's one of the more tougher sports to call. I'm interested, number one, because I've been in that cat seat at the top of the broadcast booth, fantastic and everything like that. Number one, I was interested just if you have a monitor there to watch, or if you're looking directly on the field, and what kind of some of your prep is going to the game.
Well, specifically to a monitor, like, do you mean look off the TV monitor?
Yeah, if you have a monitor that they give you so you can like have a closer look at the numbers and whatnot.
Yeah, sometimes I try not to use it, but sometimes, particularly like on the far side, and there's a whole gaggle of players that play right there, and you can see guys on the other team gathering around it. So sometimes I look, or sometimes the player is obscured. Again, he catches it in the far corner and he falls down. You don't quite see him, but they've got a better view. But I try to steer clear of the monitor as much as is practical. We don't have a spotter per se. I'm kind of the spotter, but I do have a depth chart that I've created with my own little notes and glitches and twitches and writing and coloring on it. So I do that. The preparation, I guess it goes on constantly, really. And I say this because I go to every practice and try to get some stuff, make some notes. I keep them in a book. I sit down, I'm at home, go over rosters, and if it's possible, practical watch video. So it's I guess what's ongoing, and I enjoy it. Actually, I don't have any problem with it at all. So it's a lot of fun.
It doesn't feel like a job, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's
just
fun.
Get into your routine, and it all falls together.
You definitely get used to it.
Yep.
Yeah. So since 1996, you and Greg partners going through this together. I mean, the longest serving broadcast duo in Canadian football history for sure, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I really appreciate Greg too, because while this is what I do, this is not his career. He's a lawyer. so he, he's a busy guy too. He's got his law career. And sometimes when we're in a city, and we go talk to the coaches and that, I go back and scratch a few notes. He goes, if they have an affiliated office in that city, and he works for a big company, so most cities they do. So he goes into the law office to do a few things, catch up on some correspondence. And so I really admire him for that. Plus he's the chairman of the Greater Calgary Football. So, and that stuff out at Shoaldice, him and a few others like Tony Spallettini and others, but they spearheaded that. That didn't just arrive without a lot of poking and prodding, and they were the pokers and the prodders.
Yeah, and it's definitely beautiful for those of you that that are in Calgary that are listening to this podcast and haven't been to that area. They've done a wonderful job to really spruce an area up that needed it, and it's really ignited as soon as this pandemic is over, the opportunity for high school students and young football players to get a taste of it, rather than just on this bumpy out field.
Rutted field. It was,
I
agree,
it was
totally.
Bad shape for sure.
Yeah.
So how does that chemistry? We talked a lot with Peter last time about the chemistry he had with Doug and his other color commentator later. But for you, with working with the same guy, it's very much like there's a certain comfort level, but you still have to build that synergy between you guys, right?
Well, I guess we strive and always say to each other, try not to step on each other. I guess the dividing line that we use is, I know the Stampeders, okay, the players, the heritage, the background of the players, but he knows football. There's a big difference there too. Like, he'll go in and we talk to the coaches, and he'll just say, well, what was the reason for using the 3-week cloud? Which is a football. I would never say that to a coach, and the coach knows that Greg knows that there's, something behind it. I mean, he had many attributes as a player, but one of them was the fact he was one of the brightest people on the field. So the point is, I leave detailed football. I mean, I can tell that they haven't had a first down in their last 3 series. I mean, but why? Yeah. Why didn't they? What has the Saskatchewan Roughriders done? Why is Bo's ball, not going out there? Why are they running plays, the wrong kind of plays? You know what I'm saying? And he can see, like, maybe Saskatchewan's made a little adjustment, lining up a linebacker a little differently, or drop, he can see that. So right. I guess that's the basic dividing line. I know the Stampeders, and I have a clue about football, obviously, but Greg knows football, just right. the stuff. Like, Dave Dickinson could walk here, hand me the game plan for the last game they played. I doubt I'd know what was on the chart, but Greg would say, well, see, what's that? That doesn't look, why'd you try that? That didn't work too well, or that looks really good. Man, you're going to screw them up when you play that. So that's the difference, I guess. And just, he's genuinely a good person, easy to get along with. He wants to make the broadcasts good. My goal is to make the broadcasts as good as possible. He wants to as well. So, and I listen back to all of the games, or chunks of them, and he really sets the table quite well when it comes to all of that stuff. So
yeah, well, it's a wonderful opportunity for me as just a listener to listen to. I love when you guys call a game.
Thank you.
I've heard many broadcasters do football across Canada, and this isn't because you're on the podcast. I've said this to Josh many times. To me, you're the best play-by-play broadcaster when it comes to Canadian football in Canada.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's very clear. Just like as we mentioned to Peter last time. You create that theater of the mind for the person that's listening, where you can kind of, because the people are listening, in their cars, or there are some people that are actually at the game listening at the same time.
My granddad was one of them. He'd always be up in the cheap Safeway seats and then put his radio in.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that listen that can't be at the game, and visually you create that theater of the mind where it's really, it's really clear. You're welcome. And on behalf of people listening, I'm sure that they also say thanks, because it really encapsulates what's happening on the field, and you don't feel like you're missing much by not being there.
Oh, that's good.
And that takes a lot of experience to do, right?
Well, we work at it. I'll say that. I don't think we're at work to get it done right and everything. The motivating factor is when I'm sitting there upstairs, and if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. You look out at the traffic at Crowchild and 24, you look at 16th Avenue out there. What do they want to hear? Yeah. They're not in the stadium. So they're counting on me. So what do they want to hear? What would, that's, or some other traffic knot somewhere. There's enough of them. So what would people like that want to hear? So
well, and it comes from the experience of doing the Calgary Cannons before, and doing some play-by-play before, and even doing the play-by-play. We talked about teams that aren't in Calgary anymore, the Calgary Wranglers.
Yeah.
You did that for a little while as well. So did you ever do the Calgary 88s?
No. No, that's when I was with the Cannons, just too busy. The seasons did have a fair bit of overlap, so there wouldn't have been much chance. That would have been fun though, but
that would have been cool
chance to do that. So no, but I try to, I do take a notepad, very similar to the one I've got here. And I do write down if I think of something different or a unique way of saying something or just a different way. I mean, the average football game has 150 plays.
Wow.
Yeah. So you got to think about it. I mean, it's, 1st and 10 at your 46 and it's a handoff 4 yards. How do you make that interesting? Because it isn't all, 75-yard bombs, although those are fun, but there's a lot of just stuff. You got to keep that interesting, and you write down different things about what you saw. So that's what I do. So I guess I have a big vocabulary book. That's one thing I do. I have somewhere here a giant vocabulary archive.
Yeah. How many times can you say the word tackled by not saying the word tackled?
Well, that's the issue. You've got to figure out some different ways to say it.
Down.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. Because as I say, there's some plays that are sensational, and you got to be ready for those. But there's an awful lot that are just plays. That's it.
Right.
Ball, punter kicks it out of bounds. Okay, it's out of bounds. So, it happens. Just boop, 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 rolls out.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say. So I do consciously try it for those, and I appreciate it. But I do try to keep a vocabulary of what might make something sound better, different, just a different approach to it, and what somebody might want to hear and see based on a play or a happening of some kind.
Right. Go ahead, Josh.
And so in your time, you've got to see, what is it, 5 Grey Cups now, championships. Is there one that particularly stands out for you?
I can't say there's one above the other. They all have such a special story, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, just go all over the place. The most recent one, 2018, that came after 2 of the most catastrophic Grey Cup losses ever. So it was wild in the dressing room afterwards, understandably. But for the one in 14, that's where Bo Levi Mitchell ascended to the top of the CFL. He was promising, but that's when he became the best. You go back 2008, John Huffnagel's first year, and he has that amazing speech that is still played about firing up the troops in the. That was such a great weekend too. We're in Montreal. Not only was it the Grey Cup and the host team was in it, it was also Patrick Waugh's jersey retirement. So do you know how much attention the Stampeders got that week? If there's a number less than 0, show it to me, because that's what it is. So, and then 2001, coincidentally in Montreal, was just such a shock. That's a team that, at the midway point of the season, I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs. Never mind play and win a Grey Cup. And then 98, the memorable kick of Mark McLaughlin, Winnipeg, and then 92. That's when the team, really asserted themselves as one of the big boys in the CFL. So, wish I could say there was one. I mean, the most drama was 1998, obviously a last play field goal.
Yeah.
Maybe the most satisfying, 2018, the most unexpected, 2001. So they all have their unique story. And I guess one thing I do as well is I try to keep in the present. I mean, this is the moment that these guys are going to celebrate. Make sure you appreciate their emotions, their feeling. I mean, the last thing I almost never is one thing I'll give myself credit for around the players say, well, back when. Back when for them. This is now. There are some things that matter, but
yeah, and a lot of people have that, oh, you haven't lost to this team in how many games? It's like, yeah, but those teams that didn't lose or maybe didn't win in some cases, because it gets brought up a lot, when the Calgary Flames were going down to, what was it, Anaheim?
Anaheim always getting
it was like, it was like, but none of those players except maybe Gio are from that team that, the last time. So how can you lay all that? And it's the same thing. How can you lay all the credit on it? Each game is a completely different game. In fact, each half is a completely different half.
I just view each game as a blank sheet to be filled in, and I've got to fill it in. The players are going to help me fill it in. That's what I view. So that's the way I see it, because the context of a game can change in a minute. What if somebody returns the opening kickoff for touchdown? That forces the other team into rearranging their thoughts too.
Yeah, it does change quite a bit for sure.
What's the biggest difference you've seen in players since you started calling games, as far as like practice rep, training, sports science, how they play, their attitudes in the last handful of years?
I would say that it's just generally just more concentration, more specialization. Guys get coaches to work out with, so I would say just more specialization. There is a little more technology, depending if you go to sort of an academy type setting in Texas or somewhere like that, where you get a lot more specialized training and things like that. But overall, the guys, they report in shape. They want to be in shape. And I would say it's more on the technology side than the work side. They just have these different things that help them appreciate and sort of diagram what they're doing in a digital way.
Right. Nice.
How's your relationship been with players, and is there a certain player that it stuck out as having a better personal relationship with?
In general, first, most of them are very good guys. Because they come from all different backgrounds. Now there are some that just don't like doing it and they aren't very good at it. And there are some that you don't have occasion to talk to very often, right? So I just try to say something to everybody, not every day, but I make a point of introducing myself just so I'm not an oddball guy just showing up to stick a microphone in your face. The relationship is fine as long as you're professional about it and courteous. And, I talk to a lot of the guys now that have retired and, they remember and I remember. Just be nice about it. Just be professional with a smile and don't bring your problems to them. They don't care. And I don't. So it's just be nice. Just be a polite adult with them. And, things have changed, though. When I started, I was, a couple years older than some of the older players. You go on, you're the same age as their parents. Now you're a little older than their parents. Now you're just a couple years younger than their grandparents. So, or it's starting to trend that way. So.
Or same age as a coach.
Yeah.
Or the general manager.
Or older. Yeah, the coach in specific. But yeah. So, and I try not, I don't try it. I say that's another reason why I don't try to drag in what happened way back when. If they ask, I'll tell them.
Yeah. And it's also building trust with them too, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, you're on the road with these guys. You're staying in the same hotels with them, flying on the same airplanes as them a lot of times.
Yep.
Right. So the opportunity to go on the road and it's building that trust and knowing that, that, like I said, that they can trust you with things. And, and that's important because if they don't, then that really hinders any type of communication that you might have with them, because any question, it's, yes, no, okay, thanks.
Bingo.
Bye.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, have I seen guys miss curfew, go out? Curfew is a certain time. I come back after curfew, so I don't have one, but and I passed by guys going out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't go running to the coach. Do you know what's his name was last night?
Yeah.
That's
and it's also hearing about trades before they even happen. The inside, the inside scoop. And it's not breaking that trust until it's actually okay. Now you can go ahead and release it.
Yeah, they give it to me on background and with the understanding. And no, I've never got into trouble with that, so you can be prepared.
Yeah, it's important for young broadcasters to know that, because a lot of times it's like, well, I want to scoop, I want to be the first one to mention that, but you do that once and it puts you in a very awkward position where you never get a chance to do anything like that again.
Yeah, and if you're, and just be around them and that, one thing you got to remember, you're with them, but you're not of them. Big difference. And
right.
You got to remember that.
Yeah, that's a huge point.
You will never, and I mean, there's a few broadcasters whose names I won't name who think I am, as a broadcaster, you're not as important as the last guy in the practice roster. That guy's more important because he's pushed one of the starting 24 to be better, right? Mm-hmm. Just be smart about that. Doesn't mean you don't have a role. Just be smart and know what it is, right?
Yeah. So a kid who grew up in Calgary, went to Wisewood, went to USC, you watched as a young kid, watching people like Ken Newens, like Russ Peake, listening to Bill Powers on XL Radio, and then getting a chance to work with all of these guys.
Yep.
Well, what was that like? At some point, it's like pinching yourself going, holy cow, like these are legends that.
Yeah. It was exciting the first time. And first time I went into CFCN, there was Henry Viney sitting there. One of the reasons I was hired is Henry was being, he just was getting older and didn't want to do as much. So I never would say I succeeded him. I just picked up his hours, or a lot of his hours. So I was there and, he turned around and looked. I'd met him before, but I think he was stunned and I was kind of shook up wondering who I was. So no, it was very exciting. I used to sit and listen to the radio when there's radio sports used to be a thing, a commodity that stations would fight over.
Yep.
And also, I used to sit and listen to them and take mental notes all the time. And I'd listen to all the stations and listen to that. So it was very exciting. And then go to news conferences and meet the other people as well. So sure, it was very, very exciting and to some level intimidating for sure, because I was much younger than most of them. So it was nice. And, to be walking into the TV station every day with one of your own seats, that was very exciting.
What was it like working with Ken and with Russ at CFCN?
Well, Russ was about a year ago. He passed away. Just amazing professional, a great approach, great upbeat attitude. The crazy part is, what people maybe don't know, is he'd work there late at night. Okay, you're done at midnight when the news used to end. He would often sit there till 1 or 1:30, replaying and making notes about what he did or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you got the job. You're really good.
Yeah.
So that was it. With Ken, he was certainly a very high profile, vivacious guy, got out there, not afraid to stir it up. And probably what I learned from him is to have contact with people too often. And I plead guilty, too worried about your performance, what you were doing and saying. And that's still very important. But remember to reach out to people outside of the station. People just want to know you. They don't remember every single word that you uttered or may have tripped over last Saturday morning or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
You never got a chance that I can recall to work in the same building as Ed Whalen, though, but you did meet him several times, correct?
He used to sit to my right at the saddle room.
Oh,
so that was good. Yeah. And actually he was a substitute host on a few of the talk shows I did during vacation. So yeah, I talked to Ed regularly, and I've talked to him. So yeah, sure. He's still it's almost been 2 decades since he passed on, and his persona and his mark, he's still recognized. That's amazing, because sometimes time moves on and they kind of move into the background. I would say it's not been the case with Ed Whalen. He still is known and remembered. So
is it wrestling, or is it the Flames, or both?
Both.
Wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, both. Oh no, I would say both. I mean,
both. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're both very visible, high profile. For a show nobody watched, a lot of people sure know a lot about wrestling, don't they?
Yeah,
I think some of those footage came onto the WWE network too, so that a whole other generation gets to figure out who he is as well. And
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
see the connection that he had, and obviously Brett has been more open about talking stuff, and obviously that name always comes up as well. So
how could it not? Yeah, I mean, each was perfect for the other.
Yeah. One of the legends I wanted to spend a little bit of time on, somebody that I got a chance to work with at CKXL, was Bill Powers.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bill passed away a little while ago. A tragic event that happened. You got a chance to work with him integrally daily. Yeah. Let's hear some Billy, because there's a lot of Billy stories.
Yeah, well, he first of all, amazing recollection of jokes. Maybe I can recall football and baseball stuff, but he knew them all. Although he did have a file of jokes there that he wrote too. He wrote them down. I think he should have done a book myself one day, but he had enough. So, knew everybody, had a really good personality, well known on the golf circuit, and just was quite a people person with quite an outgoing persona. I mean, you walk into a room and people immediately kind of gravitated to him. So very big personality. Yeah, and it was just horrible at the ending. But very big personality, and worked the phones. He was quite an original when he started at CKXL. I'd say CHQR when he came there. He could still be him, but it's a lot more of a button-down station than CKXL 1984 was. So say that. So that's just.
Well, my first meeting of Bill was I'm an 18-year-old kid still going to SAIT. I'm finishing my first year, and they hired me to be the midnight op on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So he would come in on Mondays at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning for the newscast or the sportscast. And I remember he walked by thinking he was waving to Dr. Dan, and it wasn't. It was me. And he stops and he walks in. And he goes, "I'm Bill Powers." And I go, "Oh, I know who you are." And he goes, "What's your name?" And he wanted to know everything about me. We talked for probably 10 minutes. And he's like, "Look, I got to go write my sports. But look, if you want, why don't you come back here at like 4 o'clock and we'll go over to TGI Fridays and we can talk some more." And I was like, sure. I'm going to say no to that. Just so approachable, so down to earth, and what a kind guy. And I can't say enough about Bill. And you're right with the jokes. It was like every time he'd leave the room, it's like, "Oh, did you hear the one about?" and then
had one for every situation at the instant recall. It was just crazy.
Too funny. Funny. Go ahead, Josh.
The next thing I was going to ask you, kind of going back to the Stamps a little bit, you've had a chance to call so many great players, but I think one of the things that stands out is the quarterbacks. I think Flutie was just after you started doing the call.
I was the host, but not the broadcaster.
Right. So the ones that obviously stick out are Garcia, Dickerson, Burris, Tate, was there, and then Bo Levi. Who is, and I don't necessarily want you to pick favorites, but just like, who was the most fun maybe to watch? And even, you kind of talked about Bo and watching him grow, become maybe the best quarterback, but just talk about like watching each of those quarterbacks and watching them grow and win.
Well, yeah, I'll go backwards in time. We'll start with the current.
Sure.
Bo is he's just brilliant out there when he picks up stuff. He's really good about where the ball goes and everything. I wish he'd run a little more, but that's another story. But he just knows he's very smart when it comes to all of that. Drew Tate, I think if he'd left here sooner, he might have been starting for another team somewhere down the line. I think he was very good. Henry was very good. You could see him getting better and better and better through his time here. Dynamic arm, probably as good an arm as anybody that's ever played here, but he would run. He scrambled and he ran for, a few hundred yards a few seasons. He was tremendous that way. So he was really exciting to watch him. He holds all the Stampeder meaningful passing records. That'll change whenever we start playing because Bo is close on a lot of them.
Yeah.
We had a 3-year gap, and if you can name all the quarterbacks there, you're a better man than me. Marcus Crandall was there. He had his highlight moment here. So Dave Dickinson is probably the brightest player I've ever seen, though. He's small. I mean, I go in there and I say, how the heck did you play quarterback? But he did. He was just bright. He just knew. He was light years ahead of everybody. So he was good. Jeff Garcia, I mean, you talk about a crazy man out there. He drove his coaches crazy with his attitude, running over people. He didn't care. He willed his team to win. Whatever he maybe lacked in physical gifts, although he had a lot, he certainly made up for in determination and attitude. So yes, we've been extremely blessed. I mean, you look it up from 1992 when the Stamps won that Grey Cup, actually 1990 when Wally Wano took over, till now, with the exception of those 3 years, 2002 to 4. I mean, this has been just a model franchise. So I've been really lucky, I guess I got to say, to see some of the best for a long time and have such a ringside seat.
Yeah, you absolutely have. One question I kind of want to just ask selfishly is my favorite player growing up for the Stamps was Alan Pitts. And obviously I know there's been so many great receivers, Milt Stiegel, maybe the best, but just as far as you've got into watching the guy, and then we were lucky enough to have Nick Lewis as well on this team, but just, what you thought watching Alan Pitts and if you had any like good Alan Pitts stories at all.
Well, he first of all was as precise a route runner as they've ever had, deceptively fast because he was 6'4". He had those long strides and he didn't look fast, but all of a sudden he was past the guy. So he was very good that way. Very talented player, no question, on top of every category as he deserves. Alan changed when he was here. He was a lot more outgoing when he came and, I don't know, he kept to himself an awful lot after that. So he was a hard guy to spend a lot of time with, but he was an amazing player. No debating his place, but any particular stories, they're all on field. I mean, he's just a tremendous player. And, maybe he's put his football in his past, but there's no debating his place among the greats ever.
As far as Canadians in the game, are you, do you want to, are you, it's kind of, do you, like we've started to see a lot go to the NFL, obviously, and we had the great guy in the Chiefs that helped with the pandemic and everything like that. Are you like, do you want to see more of these Canadians go, or are you just happy to see them go wherever they go?
I hope that, the ratio I would like to see kept. So wherever guys go is wherever guys go kind of thing. Some guys will have an opportunity for a situation in the, in the NFL, great, good for them. If you're undrafted, it's not as easy to make a roster, but good for them. You mentioned Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. He was drafted by the Stamps, but the next time he sees Calgary will be at the airport en route to Banff. So that'll be that. But I don't know. It doesn't bother me if a guy has the aspirations. And I mean, guys that play in the CFL can have a long, very productive career, especially offensive linemen. They can have long, successful careers and maybe not have all the money on earth, but certainly a good cushion and an opportunity to set themselves up, post-football.
A lot of these players as well. I mean, they're not getting paid what they're getting paid going to the NFL. Famous Stu Laird, fireman slash, Stampeder player. Thoughts about that, about them trying to make a living on playing their hobby, you know what I mean? And making 30,000-40,000 maybe type of thing.
Yeah. Well, everyone, if you come into the CFL, you know that you'll need another career at some time. the day that you need that second career may not be a day or time of your choosing, but everybody will need a second career. Even the high paid guys, the top guys, the quarterbacks, they're going to have to eventually go to a second career. So if you know that and you're prepared for it, I know one player told me that when he got there and after a couple of years realized this. So he'd take all the guys that just made the team the first year and call them over and say, okay, get ready for your post-football career. What are you doing? He'd tell them that, be ready for it. And they'd say, I'm here to play football. What do you said? It could happen any day. So yes, I mean, they have to be smart about it. They have to live like, quote, regular people. We all know, people that make 70, 80, $90,000 a year outside of hockey heroes. I don't know too many people pulling in $6 or $7 million a year. So that's one of the big charms of the CFL, as it is kind of regular people stuff. I mean, some people make good money. You can, good players can make a couple 100,000. Bo Levi makes a lot more than that as quarterbacks do. But be prepared. A second career is a necessity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What have you missed the most about not being able to call games during this pandemic?
Just being able to go to the stadium, the preparation, the group that's around the team, getting to know players, socializing with them, going on the road. One thing about football travel, it's a relatively, in and out kind of basis. So that's okay. But going to these places, meeting the players, I do like the preparation. I like when I leave the house and go to the stadium, I check and make sure I've got everything that I'm going to need. And so just the overall routine and excitement. And it is exciting to go to the stadium and hear all those people roaring either for or against you, but it's just really exciting. Commonwealth in Edmonton, that's a great venue to go and see. And when it gets full, there's a lot of noise. It's amazing. Here, maybe they get a bit of a reputation as not being vocal. I'm not sure I agree. You hear some of those playoff games from years past, it was pretty wild. So just the whole environment and seeing these different places and just the whole routine. I guess I've built most of what I do around it. So it's gone for 1 year anyway.
You were mentioning how, with the COVID happening, pandemic, and when we finally go back to this, a lot of players have moved on. Do you think that this pandemic has kind of been the giant reset button for a lot of the teams that, when they were maybe not as competitive or whatever, they can it's kind of balanced the league out a little bit?
I'm not sure about that because, as you say, many players have retired, just moved on. So it's not one team over another that has it. I mean, the Stamps have lost a few. I mean, Edmonton lost a long-serving veteran the other day, Ryan King. Every team has a story or two like that. So I don't know if it'll be any kind of a reset, but it'll put a lot of pressure on teams and people to restock their teams, because the rosters that finish 2019 will look nothing like the rosters that will take the field for 2021, and by extension it'll open the door for some new people. I mean, this has been tough to see a lot of people move on, but does open the door for some new people as well.
New people and maybe a new team. Halifax Schooners, do we see it?
If we were talking a year ago today or pre-pandemic, my answer is yes. But I think it's been squished back on the priority list, unfortunately. I'd love to see it to balance out the league, just give it a coast-to-coast profile. Do I think it'll ever happen? Yeah, I do. But I think it was imminent to be too strong a word, but it was really close. It was within arm's length, I guess I would say. I won't say that today because Halifax was going to put in some money, the city of. They've got other priorities. The league has to just, straighten out the 9 they've got. So it's been pushed well down the list of priorities. I'm afraid.
It's third and
disappointingly.
Inches.
Yeah. Well, it's not inches. It was, but it's not now. So you'll need to get the yard chains out. It's a little further back.
Yeah, it's too bad because, like I said, I'm hopeful that we'll see a lot more people in the stands. Not taking the games for granted as much as maybe they did, I'm probably just as guilty as a lot of Stampeder fans that haven't had a chance to go to games because the team has been so successful for so long that if they lose 2 or 3 games in a row, it's like, oh my God, panic time. You know what I mean? They've done a wonderful job, John and Wally, before. I mean, we've had some incredible general managers running this league or this team in the league.
Just as an example, I was in Winnipeg 2 years ago now. I guess the years are running together. Anyway, they did beat the Stampeders. I think it was at 18. And that qualified them for the playoffs for a third straight time. And it was just so much excitement in the stands. The players were hugging everybody. And I'm just sitting back there and saying, dude, you just made the playoffs. The Stamps expect they'll be in their third straight Grey Cup, not just creeping into the playoffs. So that's the standard that we've got here. And they've largely lived up to it.
Yeah, and like I said, with people not being able to travel, or maybe not feeling as comfortable to travel anymore with everything going on. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever going to get on an airplane for years without having a mask on.
Probably,
you know where things are at and different comfort level. I think people are going to start looking at doing things a little bit more local, and instead of running off to doing something, to Phoenix or whatever. Hey, let's go to the Stamps game. We got nothing going on. They're playing.
I think
Edmonton,
so. Sure. I say there's a pent up demand for a lot of things, and sports will be one of the beneficiaries.
Movies, restaurants,
movie theaters. Exactly. I agree with that. We've sat here and said, geez, wouldn't it be nice to go to a movie?
Well, we've binged everything on Netflix.
Yep.
What's some of your favorite Labor Day memories?
Oh, it's quite a few. I got one from relatively recently, just a couple of years ago, when Paredes kicked the game-winning field goal on the last play. That was sensational. There was one in 2001 that Edmonton won on the last play of the game. Some of the just back and forth excitement. The Stampeders had one of their biggest wins over against Edmonton on 2010, clobbered them good. There was one year when both games here and in Edmonton were decided by 1 point, each won a game. So that was sensational. The return match in Edmonton is treated every bit as importantly as the game here is. So those are some great games too. I mean, I was there when they had a record crowd of 62,000 one night in Commonwealth. So that was tremendous. And just the excitement. It's a game unlike any other here. So it's just all of the games, all of the excitement. Jeff Garcia addressed the team. He came up about 3 years ago now and just got the guys all fired up. He said, those that haven't heard it, and I heard a little bit of his speech but he was way down the field, but it got me fired up too. So.
The Pee Wee Smith run right into the dressing room.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's my favorite. And you and I, again, born and raised in Calgary as well, went to Bishop Grandin High School. So, I listened to all those games and watched a lot of them. When the Stampeders weren't very good and Edmonton was the big team. And I can't tell you how many times that, the Stamps were leading in a game and Tom Wilkinson would come onto the field with 2 minutes left. And it was a long pass to, pick on one of the players and we'd lose in the final play. It was, heartbreaking.
Well, and to reverse that, I think one of the most significant, like I did for the Stampeders, the 75 biggest moments in Stampeders history. I did that, and it's something I sent to them. They're going to use it. Number 2 was just the play you described, Pee Wee Smith catching that ball in Edmonton. Why? Because first of all, it was a sensational game. They were down 33-18 entering the fourth, but they went into Edmonton, beat Edmonton. And then there was that drama, like say Pee Wee disappearing. Then he turned around, came out, rolls up his hands. He said, we've done it. We've conquered them. It was, I don't think he intended it, but it was certainly amazing. So that was just a truly awesome experience.
It's that and that Theron Fleury goal in overtime, sliding across the ice with his legs up in the air. Yeah. It's like those classic Calgarian images of sports teams. And you're right. They don't mean to do it, but your emotions just get away from
you.
Yeah,
he did it. And it's just the way he came back. I just said, we have done it. We're here. We knocked off the big guys. Now we're one of the big guys. And they've largely been that since that game.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
You've got the ability to be doing talk sports radio right now. Has that been able to scratch a little bit of that itch about, like, obviously it's different doing play-by-play, but at least keep the broadcast skills?
Oh yeah. I certainly enjoy it. Yeah. No, it hasn't done enough about football. It's just frustrating. What do you talk about? There's not a lot of football topics you can talk about. No. There's some. We'll do whatever there is. I mean, that Hall of Fame announcement was amazing. And we talked to players that have signed. But, we haven't had we had Dave Dickinson on once in about the last 5 months because, there's only so much you can talk about, right? And, we tried it, but you can't just keep going back to players and saying, yes, we want to play. Yeah, we want to play. I get it, So it's certainly interesting. I look for every football story there is. Pardon me. I just wish there were more of them.
Sports Talk every weeknight, 7 till 8 on QR, correct?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Excellent.
Really
Anything else? Anything else that you're up to that we need to let our listeners know about?
I got one big question for him afterwards.
Okay.
Well, as far as big things, no, just to plow ahead, just get ready for a season that I think will start. It'll be delayed, hopefully not too long. I think we're going to hear, as the time we record this, it'll soon be an announcement about a delay to the start of the season. But if there's another delay to the start of the season announcement, that's what I'll get nervous about what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah, if that this changes into two really quick. If that does happen, if there's a delay and there's no season, and I don't want to, be doom and gloom, but what do you think the future of the CFL missing 2 seasons?
That's the nuclear option that I too don't really want to discuss.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have to be naive to think it won't do catastrophic damage to the league.
Yeah.
Would it be the
I guess
fatal
that's
blow?
where you put the Dwayne Johnson thing to be like, I guess that kind of helps because the money's right there.
Could be. It could be. We hope so. Yeah. It'd be just almost too catastrophic, to take it away for 2 years. And as I say, it's the nuclear option if they can't get on the field. And what would come out the other end of that? I'm kind of fearful of it. I don't know what there would be.
The brighter question I have for you is, the CFL's back on, we're all going, and they're like, you know what, Mark, you've done a tremendous job in this league for us. We're going to make you commissioner. What are you changing?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a good one. To be the commissioner of the league. Well, there'd be a lot of things you would want to do. I would want to keep the on-field product as good as you could. That'd be number one. Number two, develop better relationships with the universities. They kind of seem to be working a little, not across purposes, but on parallel tracks. I would work a little bit about that. I don't know where additional funding would be, but look everywhere. The online world is a gold mine. Are they doing enough of that? I don't know. We'll, work on that. Getting Halifax in under whatever the circumstances are. Just make sure that the integrity, the legacy, and the heritage of the CFL as a Canadian entity is protected. If there's anything that violates that or threatens to change it, I'd be against it. But those would be some of the priorities. Make sure you concentrate on your strengths. The league, I know Toronto's a tough market. I get it. They spend an awful lot of time on Toronto. Make sure Saskatchewan and Winnipeg fans are rewarded, and talk about, thank the people that are involved in the league. So not an easy job. You've got 3 community-owned teams. You got several that are owned by big companies, including Calgary Sports and Entertainment, that have a different way of going about things. You've got independently wealthy people, and all of them are used to being first in line.
Yeah, they are.
Absolutely. Mark, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate you joining us for this discussion about you, your career, a lot about Calgary sports, and obviously the Stamps as well. Thank you for your time, and looking forward to hearing many, many more games from the Stamps from the voice of Mark Stephen, our play-by-play. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you too, and I can't wait for the football season to crank into gear, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Until next time, folks, cheers and enjoy the day, people.